In the last episode, you heard from Greg Schwartz from Household, who shared how D2C brands can win with TV advertising. Today, on episode number 32, get ready. Matt Bertulli is the CEO at Pela Case that makes sustainable phone cases, and also more recently, Lomi, which is a countertop composter that turns your food waste into dirt while you sleep. And I'm telling you, everyone, this is pretty magical. I own one. It's pretty cool. Now, we'll be chatting about how to create your own category as a brand when you're competing in a crowded space. I'm your host, Raphael Paulin-Daigle, and I'm the founder of Splitbase. This is Minds of Ecommerce. Now, this episode is brought to you by Splitbase. And at Splitbase, well, we help leading D2C brands such as Dr. Squatch, Hyperice, and Amica A/B test, design, build, and manage high-converting landing pages and on-site experiences. Our optimization program pinpoints exactly where your store is losing money most, and then we help you fix it. The result: increased conversions, AOV, and of course, improved marketing efficiency. Request a proposal on splitbase.com today to learn how we can help you get the most out of your marketing spend. All right, Matt, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, man, this is going to be fun. It's been a minute.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm pretty familiar with your brands, and I've known you for a couple of years now. And every time I talk with you, there's always really cool stuff that you guys have worked on. You always have a really cool angle when it comes to thinking around marketing and branding. So today, as you know, since this podcast is all about going deep and dissecting one key growth strategy, we're going to talk about category creation, and we're going to go as deep as we can in 15 minutes.
Sure.
Just for context, you've had Pela for a while and more recently Lomi. In total, about how many years have you been working on those brands?
So Pela Case, I think, is like 6.5. Lomi is, we've been in market for 2. I think I've been working on it though for like 3.5 now, like from when we started working on the product to like today.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's dive right in. Category creation. How do you define that as a brand owner, CEO, and marketer?
So the very simple way to look at it is we're always trying to do something different, not better. And most brands, most products are just, their positioning is basically, we are better than something else. And they don't ever force a conversation in the consumer's mind around, oh, this is different. I'm going to force a choice now. So that's how I define it. I like to keep it like really simple for my team. So, and anytime we get into anytime I hear a conversation internally where it's like better, or we're talking about features, I'm just like, I want to throw up. And it's like, no. How do we do something different?
So was that something when you started Pela?
Yeah.
Was that like a decision on day one of like, let's create a new category, or is it something that kind of came later on?
So when we started Pela Case, like when I got involved, which was pre-revenue, I was the first check writer in the business. I didn't realize that category creation was an actual thing, right? And there's people that write about this. I had no clue. What I did know was we needed, at that time, even today, when I tell people I sell phone cases, they're like, what an awful category in a bloody ocean. And it's so competitive. And so rewind the clock to 2017 and same thing, right? People are like, you're an idiot. Don't go into such a competitive thing. It's a race to the bottom. There's no money, blah, blah, blah. And at that time, I'm like, no, I actually my co-founder, Jeremy, he had this material, and I'm like, this material is awesome. Like, I've never seen anything like this before. And he had made the first case, and I'm like, this actually could be really interesting. Like, this is super different from anything that's out there. So we launched that brand under this, we're the world's first compostable phone case. And that statement right there, right? Everybody's like, what the hell is that? There wasn't we're the most, at that time, that our position in our company, right? The thing that we would joke about is, I don't ever want to see an ad or a campaign that comes out of Pela about protective. Everything was like, look at how high I can drop my phone case. Like I can go on a
Yes.
helicopter and throw it out of that, or
Every
off the
brand.
it was everybody knows those ads, right? It's all the same
Yep.
shit. And we were like, well, what's a completely different thing that nobody's ever seen before? And I'm like, we're going to make a compostable phone case.
Mm.
And we launched that and like scaled it very, very quickly over the first like 3-4 years. And even today, like we're talking about a multi 8-figure revenue business that is great. And
Amazing.
we created this whole category. Now there's imitators and knockoffs. And like, that's how you know you created a category, is when there's a bunch of other people then that'll
Mm.
take that thing that makes you different and then they try to rip it off, but never, you own like 75% of the demand anyway.
Right.
Like that's category creation.
So I'm curious. So for Pela, you guys got into an already super, super crowded space, and
Yep.
category creation was a bit kind of like your savior in really making space for yourself.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious about Lomi. Lomi is a pretty innovative product. I
Yeah.
mean,
It's
I
like
didn't
brand
know it
new.
was even a thing
Yeah.
before you guys built that. So for a product that's already innovative, how are you defining or thinking around category creation?
So with Lomi, it was about a new way to think about an existing problem,
Mm,
right? Pela Case was like a new way to think about an existing thing that people knew, like a
yeah,
solution. So with Lomi, we had to zoom up to the like, these are people that are like, they're problem aware, but they're not solution aware,
yeah,
right? And Lomi it's so innovative. Like that's actually what makes doing something like Lomi so difficult, is like we have to educate the customer on what the hell a Lomi is,
mm,
right? With Pela Case, you know what a phone case is. This is just a way different way to look at it. Lomi, that it's the lift for something like Lomi, like is a brand new invention. It's a new device in the home. I've never seen one of these before. What the hell is it? Why do I need
yeah,
that? Like, what problem is it solving for me? Is that even a problem? Do I care about? Like, there's so many more questions when you genuinely create something the world has never seen before. And I think that like 99% of brands they don't ever get to that point, nor should they. Like, frankly, 99% of companies should not be trying to invent something new,
mm,
like new, you know?
right.
So I think that like Lomi is a very pure version of category design and category creation. And I think Pela Case is the more approachable
Mm,
category creation brand. Like it's going to be the one that most people can look to and say, oh, okay, I can do something there.
right.
Both were heavy R&D companies though, right? Like
Mm,
we Pela Case, like
true.
we have material science that we
Yep.
invest in. Lomi is like device and software. There's like heavy R&D components to both companies.
I love how you put it that way, though. Category creation can be applied in different ways, right? Like you
Yep.
said about for Pila, it's really about the brand, whereas Lomi, it's really about the problem.
Yep.
Now you just mentioned R&D, so you did have something very unique and special about the product that
Oh, both.
obviously
Yep.
enabled you to create a category. Do you
Yep.
think, brands that doesn't have that special thing can still create a category?
I think in physical goods, it's harder if your product isn't different.
Mm,
And I think a lot of DTC brands, this is where a lot of the blood in the business is in the streets, is like they basically innovated on packaging and
mm,
branding, but not on the actual product. And I think that's a massive missed opportunity. It's harder to try to innovate on product. But if you look at the biggest and most successful, look at all the 9-figure D2C brands, they all innovated on product
sure.
almost exclusively. They put time and effort and energy and resources into the product. Um, I'm sure there's exceptions to that statement. So somebody listening to this, you can call me on that. But like the guys that I know that I talk to that are up at big scale all have something very different
Mm,
about their product. They didn't just order that crap off Alibaba and wrap a cool box on it.
mm, yep. Now, I mean that's such a good. I'll make sure to take out that quote, because I think it is something that we see in the D2C space quite a bit, and people think we can just launch a sexy brand with new design, and
Oh,
that's
I
kind of
mean,
it.
just like Yeah, man. Look at the co-packing or co-manufacturers. Like that as a function right there tells you just how non-innovative we are in consumer. It's
Totally.
like the same company is making the same shit in every bottle or every
But
box.
different packaging. Yeah,
They're the only
exactly.
ones making money in the business too, right? Whereas like if you look at like the really profitable companies in consumer, they tend to do something very different, right?
Yeah.
And I could rattle them off one by one and tell you what's different about each one. And I think that like if you're new to consumer or you're like trying to grow in consumer, the thing that you should be studying about from every brand out there is what's the thing that they do that nobody else was willing to do in their category. And usually it's that product, but like in some cases, it's also in their manufacturing. Like what makes Pela Case special is two things. One, we have proprietary material that's super cool and it's like completely different from everybody else. It's the most efficacious material in the phone case business when it comes to like sustainability. And two, I actually manufacture locally here in British Columbia, Canada, and we make everything on demand, which means we have a perfectly negative cash conversion cycle.
Incredible.
Order, make, ship. Not order, print, ship. Like most people think it's just print on demand. No. We have a facility with injection molding machines and like we actually bring in raw resin and we make the product on demand.
Build on demand.
Nobody,
love it.
and you know what? Nobody's willing to do that.
Yeah. Matt, let's talk about category creation as a marketing angle.
Yep.
Let's say people listening to this, a lot of them already have a brand. And I think, a lot of people are testing and trying to figure out, what about our product or which features of our product actually sticks and resonates with people. And it's that never ending game of testing and trying to understand, what people like to hear the most,
Totally.
to get them to convert. So how do you go about creating a new category for an existing product? What should marketers and founders think about when they hear this?
I mean, I look at it. Okay, so I just go back to like the easiest way to do this with an existing product, an existing brand, is to actually focus on the customer and the problem you're solving for that customer. And, are there actually like small segments of customers out there that you already have that have a completely different way of looking at your product? So like your product solves a very specific problem for those people. It's sort of like the, narrow and niche down thing, but looking at it more from, okay, this set of customers has a different way to look at our product. Then you take your brand and your marketing and your messaging and you orient it around what makes you very different from everything else. With category creation, you're trying to force a choice in the consumer. How you can tell, like, if you've got if you can do this thing called category creation is when it gets difficult to sit your product next to anything else. Right. And you see this in like, conversion optimization land all the time. It's like, and it pisses me off. And I'm like, this is how you know you have a terrible brand, is when the number one thing on your page that performs is how your product compares to the existing incumbent. You are not creating a category. You are selling something better. Right. And all you're doing is like, you're doing the Pepsi Coke thing. So everybody that comes to your website, you're saying, hey, this is like my widget ding dong thing. By the way, here's how it compares to the existing widget ding dong thing in the market. And I just told people that this existing thing exists. Geez, that's freaking smart. So I buy all this traffic from paid media only to tell people that there's a competitor out there. You're a genius. You won't catch me dead putting that on a single landing page in any brand I'm involved in. Like, shoot me if you ever see me do that, Raph. Because that's like, I spent all this money just to tell someone there's another protein powder.
Writing that down. I'll make sure if I see you do that one day, I'll let you know.
Shoot me if I ever get into this product compared to this product game on my on site. You want to be like old way, new way.
Yeah.
Okay. Life before your category, life after.
Yes. The transformation.
Category. See, dude. Yes.
Yeah.
And if you look at like, man, there's so many examples where this has been done. going back 100 years or 200
Yeah.
years.
Because I'm thinking, like a product like yours, right? The innovation is not going from a cheaper competing product
No.
that potentially no one knows about. The innovation is going from having your garbage stink, your compost full of insects and
Yeah.
worms, or not composting at all, to just being able to do
Yes.
it, on your countertop. And that's the contrast. That's the transformation you're selling.
Yes.
Right.
I don't compare Lomi to like the other, like, do we have knockoffs now? Yeah. Like there are competitive products,
Yeah.
but never in a million years would I show theirs against
Right.
ours and how ours is better.
Yeah.
Like we talk about ourselves in the singular.
Totally. You've tweeted a ton about category design and category creation. What do you think, like, who's one brand that's not yours that you think has done a phenomenal job at that? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Oh God. I'll give them to you in consumer,
Yeah.
because like I actually, two of them are co-hosts on my podcast. So Hexclad,
Yeah.
right? Totally like different way to look at cookware. New material, new technology, like even from a brand perspective, it's like set out to build the bad boy of cookware. Got Gordon Ramsay, like they built a new category of cookware. In cookware, which is like old and bloody, and like you got some really big ass companies that they've carved out and said like, no, we've got a new category. I think Sean and Connor at Ridge, like they really went after materials. So like just like Pela Case, we went after sustainable materials. Ridge said like, no, we're going to go after like carbon fiber and titanium and things that you're just not usually seeing in wallets. It's like shittiest category ever to go into. So this stuff exists in consumer if you just open your eyes and look. The guys that run like Bamboo Earth, Taylor and all those guys, like that's a cool brand. I think they even own their own manufacturing. So like they're doing category creation. That's the thing with category creation. It's not just a marketing thing. You actually have to look at like, what are the ingredients in the business that make it unique?
Yeah.
And make it really stand out relative to like the meta category that you're in. 99% of us are going to be competing in an existing meta category. Shoes, cookware, skincare, like there's only so many, right?
Yeah.
And so I think like if you just look around at the brands that are really winning, man, those are a few. And there's lots of ways to do it. Like some people it's like the bundling and unbundling thing. Like every category is always going through bundling or unbundling. But I look at like even Mike at Simple Modern, like they've gone into drinkware, mega competitive. And then they basically built their brand around this, like, no, we're going to just be affordable and we're going to go build local manufacturing and do print on demand and decoration and things that until they did that, Yeti didn't do it.
No one did.
Nobody did it.
I think the takeaway here, right, is at the end of the day, category creation is how you actually get people to choose you instead of competitors. But at the end of the day, you can't just be better. You have to be different.
Different, not better. Yes.
Yeah, it is what I like to call that unique mechanism, right? Like there has to be something unique and different so that you can really talk about it. It's not just about being a little better. And I think that is probably the one key thing to remember.
Dude, totally. And if you want a hack for how to find the thing that's like you can build something unique, is run towards the thing that scares the shit out of you. Like whatever, when you look at your business and you look at that meta category, it's like, what's the thing that nobody else is willing to even look at because it's terrifying?
I love that. I love that approach. Matt, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes made by brands trying to do this? We've talked about comparing, to competitors that shouldn't, be seen as competitors. But is there anything else that you've seen that you're like, oh man, they're doing it wrong or they shouldn't do that? Or mistakes that you guys have made in the past, maybe?
Look, I think the big one is the comparison. By far, that's the most common that I see. The other big one is like, I'm going to zoom in just on consumer here.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's what we're talking about. Because like category creation applies across the board. But in consumer, I think that like right now, if I had to pick one thing, I would say we buy into a lot of dogma in this space. So trying to create a category, you sort of also have to, you kind of have to now buy, like your belief system needs to be something that you stand up from scratch. So like one thing, like with Lomi, right? Meta as an ad platform is absolute dog shit for Lomi. It's awful. You know, I'm happy you did an episode on television. We love TV. You know, Meta's just terrible for net new category creation. It's not good. Meta is the ultimate in-market demand capture platform ever invented.
Right.
Well, if you're creating a new category, it's actually not going to be aware of who's in market for the new category. So I think like when you set out to build a new category, you also really have to look at like the go-to-market strategy and how that's going to be different from what most other people are talking about in the space. You know, like, and a lot of our space is really focused on Facebook ads, right? And making that work and making that scale. And it's a freaking, I love it. We use it for Pela Case. It's amazing. But creating a category, man, like it may not be the right tool. You should question everything when you create a category. You know, and I think that that's why category creation is not for the faint of heart.
Right.
Right. It's not easier. It's actually harder. But the value creation is probably a lot bigger.
Well, I was going to say most great brands have created their own categories.
Almost all of them.
Right.
Almost
so
all
depends. It depends what you want to achieve.
Yeah. Lululemon, new category, you know, and then people would say like right now, like, well, you know, nobody else has created that. I don't know. Vuori has basically created their own category within activewear, athleisure, whatever you call it. You know, and so like even new brands, the ones that are growing really fast, they all tend to be pulling levers from this sort of like category creation playbook.
I love it. Matt, we're pretty much out of time, but one question I always want to ask people who's built multiple successful businesses like you, is if you were to start this all over again, Pela or Lomi, what would you do differently? And I'm sure there's a ton, so apologies for the loaded question, but I will still ask.
So much. Lomi, I wouldn't lean so hard on consumer. Like now that we know more about that business, like D2C is actually not the best place to sell a product like that. But I didn't know that until I got going and met like a bunch of people like the CMO from Roomba and, you know, these other, and like one of my advisors is the lady who, like, she was the president at Keurig, right? So like talk about category creation, like Keurig invented single cup coffee, like them in Nespresso, you know, like great example of like multi-billion-dollar category creators. I would really look and pay attention to my go-to-market a little more closely. So like when I built, you know, I'm working on another, I'm not working on it, but I'm investing in another company right now that is going to be creating a new category. And we're paying a lot of attention to go-to-market and like, not just saying like, well, this is how everybody else does it. Right. It's like, well, how do we want to go to market that's going to be completely different from how everybody else has done it? And then that's going to be part of our category creation process.
Interesting. I feel like no one does that. Just Facebook, Instagram, let's do it.
It's like launch the brand, get some influencers, fire up some Facebook ads.
Yeah. The playbook. Matt, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Now, obviously, if people want to learn more about you, Lomi, Pela, where should they go? You also have a podcast?
Yeah, I've got a podcast called The Operators. I do that with 3 other co-hosts. They all run consumer brands. That's awesome. Show's like going great. People seem to like it. I don't know. It's hilarious. We basically just talk to each other because that's what we like to do. You know, Twitter, Bertulli, and then I read a weekly email for CEOs called No Competition. So just go to nocompetition.media. Great domain. Yep. Awesome. Matt, thank you so much. And excited for people to listen to this episode. Have a great day. It's been great.